In the village of Kambala, nestled between rolling savannas and the thick whispering forest, there was a drum. Not just any drum, but one wrapped in centuries of legend and warnings. Its surface gleamed under the sun with a burnished red-brown hue, and intricate carvings of ancestral spirits danced along its sides. The elders said it was the dunduni, the sacred drum of the ancestors, kept sealed because it held power beyond mortal understanding. No one was allowed near it, not the young, not the old, not even the bravest hunters. Its seal was a simple cloth, tied with knotted leather, but the elders claimed that within, the drum contained voices that could charm the heart and ensnare the soul. Yet, curiosity has a way of creeping into the minds of children, and for Taye, a boy of 11 summers with eyes like molten amber and a restless spirit, curiosity was a fire that would not be tamed. He had first seen the drum when he was small, craning his neck during the annual festival when the elders gathered to recount stories of the ancestors. It sat on a raised platform in the center of the village square, surrounded by candles and woven mats. The air shimmered with reverence, and even the wind seemed to hush when the drum's legend was spoken aloud. "Do not touch the dunduni," warned Elder Nia, her voice as brittle as old bark, yet carrying authority. "It is not a toy. Once opened, the spirits within awaken, and their music can lure your heart and steal your soul." Taye had nodded solemnly that day, but that night, sleep evaded him. In the quiet hours, he imagined the drum's surface glowing, the carvings moving like liquid, and a melody so sweet it could make even the hardest heart ache with longing. His dreams were filled with invisible dancers and swelling colors, and in his heart a quiet voice whispered, "What if I could see the music?" Days turned into weeks, and Taye found himself drawn more and more to the drum. He would linger near the platform, hiding behind baobab trees, pretending to play with sticks and imagining the thunder of its sound. The village buzzed with preparations for the next festival, but Taye cared little for celebration. He only cared for the drum and the secrets it kept. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the forest, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds, Taye found himself alone in the square. Elder Nia had gone to fetch water from the river, and the other villagers were still preparing the evening meal. The drum sat there, bathed in twilight, its carvings glinting with an almost imperceptible shimmer. Taye's hand itched. He could hear a faint hum rising from within the drum, like a whisper meant just for him. He knelt, placing his small palm against the knotted leather binding. It felt warm, almost alive. One finger brushed against the edge of the seal, and the hum grew louder. His heartbeat quickened. "What harm could it do?" he whispered to himself, the words trembling in the cool evening air. "It only sings." The knot loosened under his eager fingers, and with a soft, almost reverent pull, the leather binding came undone. Taye's hands shook as he lifted the cloth, revealing the drum's surface fully for the first time. The moment his palm touched the drum head, a note rang out, a single pure sound, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Taye gasped. The vibration ran through his fingers, up his arms, and settled in his chest. Then another note followed, and another, and the air filled with a melody so haunting, so enchanting, that he forgot to breathe. From nowhere, shadows began to stir. At first, they were small, flickering at the edges of his vision. But soon they grew, stretching across the square like dancers on invisible stages. They twirled and leapt, bending in ways bodies should not, moving without weight, without flesh, yet perfectly synchronized with the drum's song. Taye laughed, awed and a little terrified. He thought the village would hear, come running and see the magic too. But the melody was private, meant only for those brave or foolish enough to wake it. The shadows twisted higher, forming shapes that were familiar and yet impossible. A hunter, a child, a woman with a basket of grain. They smiled, bowed, and spun in the fading light. For a long while, Taye played. Each beat brought forth new forms, new figures, all dancing to the rhythm that pulsed with life. And yet, as the moon rose, a chill swept over him. The shadows' smiles began to linger, too wide, too hungry. Their movements grew faster, sharper, almost predatory. Their eyes, where there should have been none, glistened with a strange light. Taye tried to stop, but his hands would not obey. The drums seemed to have a mind of its own, and the music carried on, louder, stronger, filling the square and slipping through the village like smoke. In that moment, Taye realized something horrifying. The shadows were not merely illusions. They were trapped spirits, bound within the drum for centuries, and now, freed, they sought something beyond mere dance. They wanted life. A voice, soft and echoing, whispered in the corners of the square, "We have waited for you. Will you join us or remain alone?" Taye's heart pounded. He wanted to run, to tell someone, but the shadow's eyes followed him, promising both wonder and danger. The choice was his, and he felt the weight of it, heavier than any drum beat, heavier than any elder's warning. The night deepened, the village slept, and Taye, a boy who had only wanted to see the music, now held the fate of the spirit and perhaps the village itself between his small, trembling hands. The dawn came slowly to Kambala, brushing the village with soft amber light. Birds chirped as if nothing had changed, and the river's water shimmered as it meandered through the fields. Yet, the village felt different. Taye woke under the baobab tree near the square, his small body stiff from hours of trembling. The drum sat there, untouched, yet the air around it seemed charged, humming faintly like a heartbeat. He could still see the shadows in his mind. They had danced, twirled, and laughed, their forms impossible yet terrifyingly real. And the voice, the echoing whisper, haunted him. "We have waited for you. Will you join us or remain alone?" Taye had thought he could hide, forget what had happened, and pretend it was only a dream. But as he crept through the village, he noticed things that weren't right. In the fields, where women had left baskets of millet, he saw shapes flickering at the corners of his vision. They moved too fluidly to be birds or wind, curling around the stalks, mimicking human gestures without substance. A goat in the pen bleated nervously at a shadow that seemed to bend over it, bowing as if in reverence to some invisible king. When he tried to speak to anyone, his voice caught. Taye ran to Eldania, hoping she could make sense of the fear coiling in his chest. She was sitting by the riverbank, hands folded over her lap, as if she had been waiting for him. Her eyes, dark and sharp, caught his from a distance. "You have opened it," she said simply, without accusation, as though reading the secret in his soul. Taye swallowed hard. I didn't know. I wanted to see the music. I didn't mean to." Eldania's lips tightened. "The drum has been sealed for generations because the spirits within are not harmless. They sing with beauty, yes, but they hunger. They have no bodies, yet they crave life. And now they are free." Fear struck Taye like lightning. "Free? But I didn't hear them ask for life." "Their music deceives, boy," she said, her voice steady and grave. "What you think is joy is only the first step of their awakening. They learn from what they see, what they touch, they watch, they wait, and soon they will choose hosts among us." Taye's stomach turned. His heart thumped wildly as a faint hum drifted from the square. He knew it. The drum had not stopped. The shadows had not gone. They lingered, hungry for what he could not yet comprehend. Over the next days, Taye watched the village closely, fearful and fascinated at once. Strange things began to occur. Children reported feeling hands brush past them when no one was near. Farmers saw shapes dancing behind the granaries, vanishing when approached. Livestock went missing or returned unnervingly silent, eyes dull as though something had passed through them. Taye began to understand the cruel truth. The spirits did not merely want to play. They wanted to merge, to live again, to exist beyond their drum prison. And the drum had given them a key: him. He tried to tell the elders, but most dismissed him as a frightened child. Only Elder Nia seemed to sense the urgency, warning him in hushed tones. You must not play it again. Even a single note can summon them closer. They will learn, they will know fear, greed, desire, and when they do, they will not leave willingly. But one evening, when the sun sank low and the wind carried the scent of earth and smoke, Taye's resolution faltered. The hum from the drum called to him, soft and sweet, wrapping around his mind like a silken rope. He approached it, though every instinct screamed to stop. As his fingers brushed the drumhead, he heard a voice, not a whisper this time, but a clear melodic tone, like laughter and song combined. Taye, play for us, see us dance, be our friend. Against his better judgment, he tapped a rhythm. The sound resonated through the square, low at first, then rising in a crescendo that seemed to pull the shadows closer. From the edges of the village they appeared, thin, twisting, impossible forms, reaching toward the drum, toward him, toward the life of the village itself. Taye stumbled back, panic rising. The shadows swirled around him, and suddenly he saw faces, vague yet recognizable. A hunter from the past, a girl who had vanished decades ago, a woman carrying a basket of grain who had once smiled at him. They were not angry, not cruel, yet in their eyes was a hunger that chilled his blood. Elder Nia appeared at that moment, staff in hand. She chanted softly in the ancient tongue, her voice rising and falling like the wind through the forest. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing like fire on dry leaves. Taye, she cried, do you understand now? You cannot control them. They feed on what they desire most, your life, the lives of those you love. Taye shook, tears streaming down his face. The drum still pulsed under his touch, its music sweet and terrifying. He wanted to close it, to run, to destroy it, but the spirits' voices whispered directly into his mind, weaving promises of wonder and power. We can show you the world, beauty beyond your imagination, freedom beyond death. And for the first time, Taye realized the full weight of his action. He had not merely unleashed music, he had freed ancient spirits with the capacity to take human hosts. The village, the people he loved, were now in danger because of him. That night, Taye lay awake under his mat, staring at the ceiling, listening to faint footsteps and whispers that didn't belong to anyone living. Sleep would not come, and in the shadows beyond the square, the spirits waited, watching, learning, dancing. The village of Kambala slept unaware, but the boy who had opened the drum knew that something terrible had begun, something that could not be stopped by a child alone. And in that quiet, terrifying moment, he understood the choice that lay ahead. Seal the drum again, leaving the spirits trapped forever, or allow them to live among humans, risking everything, including himself. The night in Kambala had changed. The moon hung like a silver sickle in the sky, casting long, trembling shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Taye could feel the drum's pull in his chest, a heartbeat that was not his own, urging him towards the square even when he tried to resist. It began subtly. Villagers would awake to find their belongings moved, baskets turned over, grain scattered, water jugs emptied. At first, they blamed mischievous children or wandering animals, but the pattern grew impossible to ignore. Animals disappeared completely, leaving only faint footprints that ended abruptly. And then the whispers began, soft, eerie, carried by the wind, barely audible, repeating a single word: play. One evening, Taye watched from the shadows as the drum began to hum without touch. From its surface, a pale blue light seeped, curling into the air like smoke. Shadows emerged, stretching their long, thin limbs across the village square. They danced gracefully, impossibly, twisting and turning in ways that defied human anatomy. And the faces, they were human. Not fully, but hints of old villagers, ancestors long gone, their eyes gleaming with intent. Taye ran to Eldania, trembling. They are dancing in the village, and they are looking at people. She nodded gravely, her eyes dark with worry. They have chosen tonight to observe. They are learning. Every glance, every heartbeat, every gesture, they absorb it all. Soon, they will know what it means to take, to live again. Fear clenched Taye's stomach. Take? What do you mean? They seek hosts, she said. Without a body, they are bound. But if they find one willing or unguarded, they may step into it. And once they do, the spirit of the human fades, leaving only the shadow behind. This is why the drum was sealed for generations, to prevent the hungry ones from ever escaping. Taye shuddered. He had only wanted to see the music, the beauty of the dance. He had never imagined consequences so terrifying, so immediate. That night, the village held its usual silence, broken only by the rustle of wind and the occasional low bleat of a goat. Taye crept toward the square, drawn by the faint blue light that pulsed from the drum like a heartbeat. He found himself mesmerized as the shadows moved. They twirled around the fire pits, bending like smoke over the villagers' huts. A shadow took the shape of a young boy, crouching near Taye's own age. It mimicked him perfectly, copying his gestures, his breathing, even the small twitch of his hand. Taye froze. "Ah, are you me?" he whispered. The shadow tilted its head. In a voice like wind over dry leaves, it whispered, "We are what you let us be. You freed us, and now we watch." He stumbled back. "But we're alive. We have hearts. You can't—" The shadow's eyes glowed brighter, and it disappeared into the air, leaving a faint trace of laughter that made Taye's skin crawl. Across the village, other shadows mirrored villagers' movements: an old hunter practicing his spear, a woman gathering water, children running to fetch firewood. The shadows mimicked with perfection and exaggeration, exaggerating gestures into grotesque forms, creating a dance that was beautiful and horrifying at once. Taye ran to warn Eldania, but the shadows were already inside the village huts, watching from corners, observing how humans lived, how they laughed, cried, and ate. Each shadow pulsed with desire. It was not hatred or anger, it was hunger. They wanted to exist beyond their prison, and now they knew how. Eldania shook her head. The drum feeds them. Every note you play, every glance you give them strengthens them. They will not stop, and son, the village will feel the cost. The boy's stomach knotted. I have to stop them. But how? You cannot, she said softly. Only the drum can hold them. And to seal it, someone must face them. Someone must be brave enough to risk being taken themselves. Taye's mind raced. Could he do it? Could a boy of 11 summers confront spirits older than the village itself? The drum pulsed under the night sky, calling, tempting, singing. He had opened it, and now he bore the weight of the spirit's freedom. That night, Taye returned to the square, heart pounding. The shadows had grown bolder. One approached him, a woman, her face blurred, eyes glowing with a strange, hungry light. She reached out, and Taye felt a tug at his chest, a pull that almost made him collapse. "Play for us," the whisper came again. Taye trembled. He wanted to run, to hide, to destroy the drum entirely. But the spirit's voice was seductive, sweet, promising beauty beyond imagination, a world without fear or pain. The temptation nearly overwhelmed him. Suddenly, Eldania appeared at his side, chanting a warning, her staff raised high. The shadow recoiled slightly, hissing like fire through dry grass. But even as it retreated, Taye realized something terrifying. They were learning to resist. Each night, their movements grew faster, their forms sharper, their desires stronger. Soon, it would not be a question of choice. They would come for life itself. The boy's heart pounded. He understood now that this was no ordinary tale of curiosity. This was a battle of wits and courage, a fight between freedom and restraint, between the desires of ancient spirits and the lives of the living. As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the trembling village, Taye looked at the drum. Its surface shimmered in quiet menace, promising both wonder and terror. The shadows had danced tonight, learned tonight, and waited, hungry and patient. Taye clenched his fists, knowing he could not delay the decision any longer. He had opened the drum, and now he must face the consequences. The question echoed in his mind. Would he seal the drum and trap them forever, or let them live among humans, risking everything? And in the distance, the shadows began to move toward the village center again, twisting, dancing, learning, waiting. By the fourth night, Kambala was no longer the same. The wind carried strange sounds, faint laughter, whispers, the soft thrum of the drum echoing through the streets. Windows rattled with no wind, fires flickered, and the villagers whispered of ghosts and curses. Mothers held their children close, and hunters gripped their spears with trembling hands, unsure what prey they would find tonight. Taye knew the truth. It was not the wind, it was not imagination. It was the shadows, the spirit he had freed, and they were learning the village's secret with every heartbeat. He ran to the square again, his small feet barely touching the ground, the blue glow of the drum bathing the surroundings in an eerie light. The shadows had multiplied. They twisted through the streets, bending around corners, sliding across walls, and imitating every movement of the villagers they watched. A shadow took the shape of Eldania herself, moving with her authority, but exaggerating her gestures into grotesque, almost mocking forms. Another shadow mimicked a child, skipping and laughing, only to disappear into thin air before anyone could touch it. Taye's chest tightened. He realized something horrifying. The shadows were not just observing. They were testing the village, learning the limits of human fear and obedience. And tonight, he feared they would take their first victim. A scream pierced the air from the edge of the village. Taye ran toward it, dodging the twisting shadows that had begun to block his path. At the edge of the clearing, he saw Malaika, a girl from his village, frozen in place. Her eyes were wide, her body rigid, as a shadow hovered over her, coiling like smoke. Its face shifted constantly, sometimes smiling, sometimes snarling. Taye's heart pounded. "No, leave her!" he shouted, but the shadow paid him no heed. It seemed to draw power from his fear, feeding on it, twisting it. Eldania appeared beside him, chanting in the ancient tongue, her voice rising above the hum of the drum. The shadow hissed, recoiling but not fully retreating. Taye realized then the terrible truth. The shadows would not leave willingly. They were patient, they were cunning, and now they hungered. He glanced at the drum. Its surface shimmered, almost alive, vibrating in rhythm with the shadow's movements. The music was irresistible, sweet and powerful, and Taye felt himself drawn toward it despite his fear. "Do not touch it," Eldania's voice snapped him out of his trance. "You must find another way." But how could he? Every instinct, every temptation pulled him toward the drum. The shadows were stronger now, more confident, moving with purpose. Taye saw one pass through the wall of a hut, imitating a villager, and realized with horror that if they found a host, the human inside would be gone, replaced forever by a shadow. He clenched his fist. He had to act. Slowly, he approached the drum, trying to ignore its Simon-like song. He whispered a prayer to the ancestors, to the spirits of the forest, to anything that might hear him. The shadows turned, sensing his movement, their eyes glowing brighter. One shadow lunged toward him, a twisted mockery of a man, its hands elongated, fingers reaching like tendrils. Taye dodged and stumbled back, nearly falling, but he did not stop.
He reached the drum and pressed his palm against its vibrating surface. The music swelled, louder, almost painful, filling the night with sound and light. And then he did something he had never dared before. He spoke to them, using words taught by Eldania. "Spirit of the drum," he cried, his voice trembling, "you were bound for a reason. Return to your prison. Leave the living in peace." For a moment, nothing happened. The shadows froze mid-air, twisted forms illuminated in the drum's glow. Then, slowly, one by one, they hesitated, their movement jerky, uncertain. Taya felt hope. But the drum's power was immense. One shadow, larger than the others, moved forward. Its face was blood, terrifying, and it reached for Taya with a hunger that made his chest ache. He tried to resist, but the pull was strong. Eldania placed her hands on his shoulders. "Focus, boy. Remember the seal. Remember your courage." Taya closed his eyes and concentrated, imagining the seal that had bound the drum for generations. He pictured leather tied tight, a ritual of binding, the ancestors' voices chanting in unison. The music became a thunderous roar in his mind, but he held firm, chanting along in the same ancient tongue. The shadows faltered, twisting in confusion. Their song of temptation clashed with the chant of binding, creating a storm of movement and sound. Slowly, painfully, the larger shadow recoiled, then vanished, dissipating into faint blue smoke. The smaller ones followed, retreating into corners and alleys, hesitating at the drum's edge. Taya opened his eyes and saw the village in semi-darkness. The shadows were not gone entirely. They lingered, waiting, but their immediate threat had been repelled, for now. He sank to his knees, chest heaving. Eldania knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have courage, Taya, but the drum is not yet sealed. The spirits are patient and hungry. One day they may return, stronger." Taya nodded, fear and determination mixing in his chest. He had seen what curiosity could unleash. He had learnt that beauty and danger could exist side by side, and he had begun to understand the burden of choice between freedom and safety, between temptation and wisdom. As the first light of dawn crept across the village, Taya looked at the drum one last time that night. Its surface glimmered faintly, promising both wonder and terror. He knew that the final decision would come soon, to seal the drum forever, trapping the spirits, or risk the lives of everyone he loved to let them live among humans.
The village was quiet, but Taye could feel it. The shadows were waiting, patient and clever, hungry for what they could not yet have. And he knew that the night of reckoning was approaching. Night fell over Kambala like a velvet curtain. The drum lay at the center of the square, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Taye knelt before it, hands trembling, heart pounding. The shadows had gathered again, swirling, twisting, dancing just beyond the reach of light. Their faces were human, and yet not, eyes glimmering with hunger, longing and curiosity. Taye closed his eyes, recalling Elder Naya's words. "One day, they may return, stronger. You must decide the fate of the village and of yourself." The drum hummed beneath his hands, seductive, promising beauty beyond imagination. "Play for us, be our friend, live with us." The boy's mind raced. He thought of the villagers sleeping safely in their huts, of Malaika, of Elder Naya, of his own family. He thought of the spirits, trapped for centuries, longing for life. The choice lay before him: freedom for the shadows and danger for the living, or safety for the village and the continued imprisonment of the spirits. Taye drew a deep breath. His fingers hovered over the drumhead, then slowly pressed down, not to play, but to command silence. He spoke aloud, his voice steady despite his fear. "Spirits of the drum, you are bound for a reason. Return to your prison. Your dance ends here." The shadows halted mid-motion. The drum's glow intensified, thrumming like a heartbeat. A voice, melodic yet pleading, rose from the mass of forms. "We only wanted to live." Taye's chest ached. He understood their longing, but the safety of his village, the lives of the living had to come first. With trembling hands, he reached for the leather bindings, recalling Eldanaya's ritual instructions. He tied knot after knot, chanting the ancient word taught to him, feeling the drum resist, the shadows scream in song and agony, twisting as they were drawn back into the sealed prison. The final knot snapped into place, and silence fell. The shadows evaporated like mist, leaving only the faint echo of their dance in the night air. The drum lay still, dark and inert, the hum of temptation gone. Taye sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He had made the choice, but the weight of it settled in his heart. He had denied the spirit's freedom, yet he had saved his people. The village would never know how close they had come to disaster. Eldanaya approached quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. Courage is not the absence of fear, Taye, but the strength to act despite it. You have done well. The boy nodded, exhausted, watching the first rays of dawn illuminate the square. The drum sat in silence, beautiful, dangerous, and still. He knew its music might one day call again, but for now, balance had returned. The village slept peacefully, unaware of the night they had almost lost to shadows. And as Taye stood, brushing dust from his knees, he whispered a quiet apology to the spirits trapped within. One day, perhaps, they would understand that some freedom comes at too high a cost. The music was gone, the dancers had no bodies, but Taye had learnt a lesson that would echo in his heart forever. Curiosity is a gift, but some doors are sealed for a reason.